The day I walked into the county foster office, I had no idea I was about to meet the two people who would either save me or destroy me. I was 34, single, financially stable, and painfully alone. My sister had died 2 years earlier in a car accident. My parents had retired to Florida and rarely called. My apartment in Portland felt like a museum, clean, expensive, and completely lifeless. I told the social worker I wanted to adopt. Not a baby, not a toddler. I wanted someone who needed a real home, not just a nursery. She looked at me over her glasses and slid a folder across the desk. "There's a pair of sisters," she said. "Ages 6 and 14. They've been in the system for 8 months. No one wants them together." I opened the folder. Two faces stared back at me. The younger one, Emma, had round cheeks and dimples that looked like they'd been pressed into her skin by an angel's thumb. She was grinning in the photo, missing two front teeth, her blonde hair in pigtails. The older one, Chloe, wasn't smiling. She had dark brown hair that fell past her shoulders, sharp green eyes, and a jaw set so tight it looked like it could crack walnuts. She was beautiful in a wounded, watchful way. The kind of beautiful that made you want to look away because it hurt to see. "They're from a bad situation," the social worker said quietly. "Their mother overdosed. Their father was not in the picture. They've been bounced between 3 foster homes. The older one has some behavioral issues. She doesn't trust easily. The younger one is adaptable." I looked at Chloe's photo again. Those eyes. They weren't angry. They were expecting something. Expecting to be hurt. Expecting to be left. "I'll take them both," I said. The social worker blinked. "You haven't met them yet." "I don't need to. I know what it's like to lose someone and have nobody see it." The first month was hard. Emma was easy. She was 6. She wanted to play. She wanted to be held. She wanted to believe that this time was different. She called me Miss Harper for the first 3 weeks, then tentatively tried Mom once while I was tucking her in. I pretended not to hear the catch in her voice when I said, "I like that." Chloe was different. She was polite. Too polite. She said please and thank you like she was reading from a script. She did her homework without being asked. She washed dishes after dinner. She was perfect in a way that made my skin crawl, because perfection in a 14-year-old isn't natural. It's armor. I tried to reach her. I bought her art supplies. She thanked me and left them in the closet. I asked about her friends. She said she didn't have any and didn't want any. I suggested therapy. She said she'd already had 3 therapists and they all asked the same stupid questions. "What's the right answer?" I asked her one night. She was sitting at the kitchen table doing algebra, her pencil scratching aggressively against the paper. She didn't look up. "There isn't one. They just want me to cry and say I forgive my mom for dying. Then they check a box and I'm processing my grief." "And you're not?" She finally looked at me. Those green eyes, flat and cold. "My mom chose drugs over us. She chose to die in a bathroom with a needle in her arm while Emma was crying in the next room. What exactly am I supposed to forgive?" I didn't have an answer. I just sat there until she went back to her homework. My parents came to visit on a Saturday in October. I'd told them about the girls over the phone, and my mother had been cautiously supportive. My father had said, "Well, you're not getting any younger, Harper. Might as well have someone to take care of you when you're old." They arrived at noon, my mother carrying a casserole dish and wearing the same pearl earrings she'd worn to every family event for 30 years. My father walked in, looked around my apartment, which was now cluttered with backpacks and sneakers and drawings taped to the refrigerator, and frowned. "Place looks different," he said. "Kids do that," I replied. Emma ran out of her room wearing a princess costume she'd found at a thrift store. "Hi, I'm Emma. I'm 6. Are you my grandma?" My mother's face melted. She set down the casserole and knelt, opening her arms. "Oh, you precious thing. Come here." Emma launched herself into the hug. My mother laughed. Actually laughed, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her since my sister was alive. My father bent down and patted Emma's head. "Aren't you a pretty little thing?" I looked at Chloe. She was standing in the hallway watching. She hadn't changed out of her sweatpants and oversized hoodie. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She looked like a ghost compared to Emma's sunshine. "Mom, Dad, this is Chloe," I said. "She's 14. Chloe stepped forward. "Nice to meet you," she said, her voice flat. She didn't offer her hand. She didn't smile. My mother's smile faltered for half a second. "Well, hello, Chloe." We sat down to dinner at 6. I'd made roast chicken and vegetables, Emma's favorite. Chloe picked at her food, pushing green beans around her plate in geometric patterns. "So, Chloe," my father said, chewing loudly, "what do you like to do for fun?" "Read," she said. "Read what?" "Books." My father exchanged a look with my mother, the kind of look they'd exchanged when I was 12 and told them I wanted to be a writer instead of a lawyer. The look that said, "This is disappointing, but we'll pretend it's not." "Emma, tell Grandma about your school," my mother said, turning her full attention to the younger girl. Emma lit up. She talked about her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, who let them have show and tell on Fridays. She talked about her best friend, Lily, who had a hamster named Mr. Fluff. She talked about the pictures she'd drawn of our family, me, her, and Chloe. That was hanging on the refrigerator. My mother beamed. "You're such a sweet girl, Emma. So well adjusted. You'd never know you'd been through, well, what you've been through." She said it like a compliment, like Emma's ability to perform happiness was a virtue. Chloe's fork stopped moving. "And Chloe," my mother continued, not looking at her, "how are you adjusting?" "Fine," Chloe said. "Just fine?" "Yes." My mother set down her wine glass. She looked at my father, then at me. Then she smiled, the tight, performative smile she used at church socials. "Harper, dear," she said, "can I speak with you in the kitchen?" I followed her. She closed the door behind us. "That girl," she whispered, "is damaged." "Mom, don't mom me. I've been around children my whole life. I was a teacher for 40 years. I know the signs. That child is cold. She's sullen. She doesn't want to be here. And she's going to poison that sweet little girl. Chloe is grieving. She's protective. She's too old," my mother hissed. 14? She's practically an adult already. Her patterns are set. You can't fix her, Harper. But Emma? Emma is young. Emma can still be saved. Emma can still be normal. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "What are you saying?" My mother straightened her shoulders. "I'm saying keep the sweet one. Send the older girl back. The system will find somewhere for her. A group home. Something. But don't let her drag Emma down with her." I stared at her. This woman who had raised me, who had taught me to be kind, to be generous, to open my home to those in need. Standing in my kitchen, telling me to tear apart two sisters because one of them wasn't sweet enough. "Get out," I said. "Harper, get out of my house, now." My father appeared in the doorway. "What's going on?" "We're leaving," my mother said, her voice shaking with indignation. "Your daughter has made her choice." They left without saying goodbye to the girls. I stood in the kitchen, my hands trembling, until I heard the front door slam. When I walked back to the dining room, Emma was still eating, oblivious. But Chloe's chair was empty. I found her in the hallway, pressed against the wall, her face pale. She'd heard everything. "Chloe, I'll pack tonight," she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "I'll call the social worker tomorrow. You can keep Emma. She deserves a real mom." "Chloe, no." "She's right," Chloe said. And for the first time, her voice cracked. "I'm damaged. I'm cold. I don't know how to be what you want. But Emma does. Emma can be happy here. So I'll go. I'll go. And you can pretend I never existed. And Emma can have the life she deserves." She turned and walked toward the room she shared with Emma. I stood there, frozen, listening to her footsteps fade. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch in the dark, listening to the sounds of the apartment. Emma's soft breathing from the bedroom. The occasional creak of floorboards as Chloe moved around. At 2 a.m., I heard the zipper of a bag. I got up and walked to their room. The door was cracked open. Chloe was sitting on her bed in the dark, a duffel bag open beside her. She was folding clothes with mechanical precision. Jeans, t-shirts, the hoodie she'd been wearing for 3 days. She didn't look up when I entered. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." She stopped folding. Her hands hovered over a pair of socks. "Emma needs you," she said quietly. "She needs someone who can love her without all this." She gestured at herself. "Without the baggage. Without the damage. I'm just going to ruin everything. I always do." I sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress sagged under my weight. "Chloe, look at me." She didn't. "Chloe, look at me." Slowly she raised her head. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry. She hadn't cried. She never cried. I realized with a sickening lurch in my chest that she probably didn't know how anymore. "Your mother chose drugs over you," I said. "Your father chose to disappear. The foster system chose to separate you and Emma 3 times. Every adult in your life has chosen to leave, and now you're choosing to leave before I can choose to leave you." Chloe's jaw tightened. "I'm not going to leave you," I said. "I don't care what my mother says. I don't care what the social workers wrote in your file. I don't care how damaged you think you are. You are my daughter. Both of you are my daughters. And I don't get to pick and choose which parts of my family I keep." "You don't understand," Chloe whispered. "Emma is the only good thing I've ever done. The only thing I've ever kept safe. If I stay, I'll ruin this. I'll ruin you. I'll ruin everything." "You won't." "How do you know?" "Because I was you," I said. "When my sister died, I pushed everyone away. I was cold. I was angry. I was damaged. And you know what? I still am sometimes. But that doesn't mean I don't deserve love, and it doesn't mean you don't deserve it either." Chloe stared at me. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then, slowly, she reached into her duffel bag and pulled out a worn photograph. It was creased and faded. A woman with dark hair and Chloe's green eyes, holding a baby. "Emma. That's your mom?" I asked. Chloe nodded. "I took it the night she died, before the ambulance came. I didn't want them to throw it away." She ran her thumb over the image. "She wasn't always bad. When I was little, she used to sing to me. She used to braid my hair. She used to say I was her brave girl." Her voice broke. And then she stopped. And I don't know when. I don't know when she stopped being my mom and started being that. She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw the child behind the armor. The little girl who had watched her mother die and had never been allowed to mourn. "I don't know how to be someone's daughter anymore," Chloe said. "I don't know how to let someone take care of me. I only know how to take care of Emma." "Then let me take care of both of you," I said. "Let me be the brave one for a while." I held out my hand. Chloe looked at it for a long time. Then, slowly, she reached out and took it. Her fingers were cold and trembling, but they didn't let go. We sat there until the sun started to rise, her hand in mine, the photograph between us. The next morning, I was making pancakes when the doorbell rang. Emma was at the table coloring. Chloe was still asleep. We'd talked until 4 a.m., and I'd finally convinced her to unpack her bag. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and went to the door. A woman in a navy suit stood on the other side, holding a leather briefcase. She looked to be in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that missed nothing. "Harper Jennings?" she asked. "Yes?" "I'm Judge Margaret Holloway. May I come in?" A judge. At my door. At 8 a.m. on a Sunday. My stomach dropped. "Of course," I said, stepping aside. She walked in, her heels clicking against the hardwood. She looked around the apartment, at Emma's drawings on the fridge, at the shoes by the door, at the pile of library books on the coffee table. Her expression gave away nothing. Ms. Jennings, I'm going to be direct with you, she said, setting her briefcase on the kitchen counter. I've been reviewing your adoption case, and I've found some irregularities. Irregularities? I repeated. What kind of irregularities? She opened the briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. Thick, official looking. My hands went cold. 8 months ago, Chloe and Emma Whitfield were removed from their mother's custody following her death. Their case was assigned to a social worker named Patricia Vance. Ms. Vance filed the initial paperwork, conducted the home studies, and approved your adoption. Yes, I said. She's been very helpful. Judge Holloway's eyes sharpened. Ms. Vance was fired 3 months ago for embezzlement, fraud, and falsifying documents in multiple adoption cases. The room tilted. What? She was selling children, Ms. Jennings. The judge's voice was flat, clinical. To the highest bidder. She would identify vulnerable children in the system. Children with no family, no advocates, no one to ask questions. She would falsify their records, declare them unadoptable or difficult, and then sell them to private buyers. International buyers, people who wanted children without the inconvenience of background checks or waiting periods. I gripped the counter. Chloe and Emma, we're on her list, Judge Holloway said. We found the ledger in her home. 2 buyers had already expressed interest. A couple in Eastern Europe wanted Emma, young, blonde, adaptable. A man in the Middle East wanted Chloe, older, strong, suitable for other purposes. I felt like I was going to be sick. But I adopted them. I got them out of the system. Yes, the judge said. And that's why I'm here. Because Ms. Vance didn't just sell children. She also destroyed evidence. She shredded files. She deleted records. And in your case, she did something worse. She slid the top document across the counter. I looked down at it. It was a birth certificate, not the one I'd seen in the adoption file. This one was different. The mother's name was the same, Diane Whitfield. But the father's name? Chloe and Emma don't have the same father, I said, reading the document. No, Judge Holloway said. Emma's father is listed as unknown, but Chloe's father. She tapped the paper. His name is Robert Vance. I looked up. Vance? As in, Patricia Vance's brother, the judge confirmed. Robert Vance is a convicted felon. Drug trafficking, assault, domestic violence. He was in prison when Chloe was born, which is why he wasn't on the original birth certificate. Diane Whitfield never named him, but Patricia Vance knew. She's known for 14 years. Why does that matter? I asked, though I was starting to understand. Because Patricia Vance wasn't just selling random children, Judge Holloway said. She was selling her own niece, and she was making sure no one ever found out who Chloe really was. The judge pulled out another document, a DNA test. We ran this last week, after arresting Ms. Vance. Chloe Whitfield is biologically related to Patricia Vance, which means Chloe has family, living family, family with legal standing. My heart stopped. You're saying someone can take her from me? I'm saying someone is trying, Judge Holloway said. Robert Vance was released from prison 6 months ago. He's been petitioning for custody of Chloe ever since. He claims he didn't know about her until recently. He claims he wants to make amends. He claims a father's rights supersede an adoptive parent's rights. But he was in prison. He never... I know, the judge said. And normally, this would be an open and shut case. A convicted felon with no prior relationship to the child versus a stable adoptive home? No contest. But Robert Vance has something working in his favor. What? Money, she said. And lawyers. Very expensive lawyers. And he's alleging that your adoption was fraudulent, that Patricia Vance falsified documents to push the adoption through quickly, bypassing standard procedures. He's alleging that you knew, that you paid for these girls. I didn't, I shouted. Emma looked up from her coloring, her eyes wide. I lowered my voice. I didn't pay anyone. I went through the proper channels. I filled out every form. I believe you, Judge Holloway said. But belief isn't enough. We need proof. And Patricia Vance destroyed most of the evidence. She reached into her briefcase one more time. This time, she pulled out a USB drive. However, she said, Ms. Vance wasn't as careful as she thought. She kept backups, encrypted files on a cloud server. The FBI cracked them last week. She held up the drive. This contains every email, every bank transfer, every communication between Patricia Vance and her buyers, including the ones about Chloe and Emma. She handed me the drive. There's a hearing on Wednesday. Robert Vance will be there with his lawyers. They'll argue that Chloe belongs with her real father. They'll paint you as a naive woman who got in over her head. They'll do everything they can to take that girl away from you. And if they succeed? I asked. Judge Holloway's expression didn't change. Then Chloe goes to a man who spent 10 years in prison for assaulting a woman. A man who has never met his daughter. A man who is being paid by parties unknown to fight this case. Parties we suspect are connected to the same buyers Patricia Vance was working with. She closed her briefcase with a sharp click. But they won't succeed. Not if we have this. She tapped the USB drive. And not if Chloe testifies. Testify? I repeated. She's 14. She's been through. She's the key witness, Judge Holloway said. She can testify about her time in foster care, about Patricia Vance's behavior, about what she heard, what she saw, about whether Robert Vance ever contacted her, ever showed any interest in her before this month. And if she doesn't want to? I asked. If she's too scared? If she can't? Then Robert Vance wins, the judge said simply. And Chloe loses everything. Again. I didn't tell Chloe right away. I waited until Emma was at a playdate, until the apartment was quiet, until I could sit across from her at the kitchen table and look her in the eyes. Chloe, I said, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen to all of it before you say anything. I told her everything. About Patricia Vance, about the buyers, about Robert Vance, about the hearing, about the USB drive, about her testimony. She listened without expression. When I finished, she sat in silence for a long time. My father, she said finally. Robert Vance. He's the one trying to take me? Yes. And if I don't testify, he wins? Yes. And if I do testify, I have to stand in front of a courtroom full of strangers and talk about the worst things that ever happened to me? Yes. Chloe stood up. She walked to the window and looked out at the street below. The afternoon light caught her profile, and for a moment she looked so much like the woman in the photograph. Her mother. Before the drugs, before the death, before everything fell apart. Do you know what the worst part is? She said, her voice quiet. I used to dream about my dad. When I was little, before I knew better. I used to imagine him as a hero, a soldier, a firefighter. Someone who would come rescue me and Emma and take us away from all of it. I never imagined. She laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. I never imagined he'd be the one trying to finish what my mom started. Chloe, I'll do it, she said, turning to face me. Her eyes were dry, but there was a fire in them I'd never seen before. I'll testify. I'll stand in that courtroom, and I'll tell them everything. I'll tell them about the foster homes where we were just paychecks. I'll tell them about Patricia Vance showing up with potential families who looked at us like we were furniture. I'll tell them about the night my mom died and how no one came for 3 hours because the neighbor thought we were just being loud. She walked back to the table and sat down. Her hands were steady now, steadier than mine. But I'm not doing it for me, she said. I'm doing it for Emma, because if he gets me, he'll come for her next. I know he will. Men like him don't stop. They take and they take, until there's nothing left. She looked at me, and for the first time I saw something other than armor in her eyes. I saw trust. Fragile, newborn, terrifying trust. And I'm doing it for you, she said. Because you didn't leave. Even when I tried to make you. Even when my own grandmother told you to send me back. You stayed. and no one has ever stayed before. I reached across the table and took her hands. They were warm now, strong. We'll do this together, I said. All of us. You, me, Emma. We're a family, and families don't let anyone tear them apart. The hearing was on Wednesday at 9 a.m. I dressed Chloe in a navy dress she'd picked out herself. Simple, serious, adult. She'd pulled her hair back in a bun, just like Judge Holloway's, and she looked every inch the young woman she was becoming. Not a child, not damaged. Just Chloe. Emma stayed with a neighbor. I didn't want her in the courtroom. Didn't want her to hear the things that would be said about her sister, about her mother, about the life they'd lived before me. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Wood-paneled, fluorescent lit, smelling of old paper and floor wax. Robert Vance sat at the plaintiff's table with 3 lawyers in $1,000 suits. He was a big man, broad-shouldered, with Chloe's green eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. He looked at Chloe when we entered, and something flickered in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or calculation. Not love. Never love. All rise, the bailiff called, the Honorable Judge Margaret Holloway presiding. The judge entered, robed and severe. She took her seat and looked out at the room, at Robert Vance and his lawyers, at Chloe and me, at the handful of observers in the gallery. This hearing is to determine the custody of Chloe Whitfield, she said. The petitioner, Robert Vance, alleges that the adoption of his biological daughter was fraudulent and seeks to overturn it, granting him full custody. The respondent, Harper Jennings, seeks to maintain the adoption and deny Mr. Vance's petition. She looked at Robert Vance. Mr. Vance, you may present your case. His lead lawyer stood up, a tall man with silver hair and a voice like velvet. Your Honor, my client is a reformed man. He served his time. He has steady employment. He has a stable home. And most importantly, he is this child's biological father. Blood ties matter, Your Honor. Chloe Whitfield deserves to know her real family, to be raised by her real father, not by a stranger who bought her from a corrupt social worker. Objection, said my lawyer, a young woman named Sarah Chen who'd been assigned by the state. There's no evidence that Ms. Jennings bought anyone, and Mr. Vance has no prior relationship with this child. Overruled, Judge Holloway said. Continue, Mr. Vance's counsel, but stick to facts, not rhetoric. The lawyer smiled. Of course, Your Honor. We have witnesses who will testify that Patricia Vance, the social worker who arranged this adoption, had a pattern of falsifying documents. We have financial records showing unusual transactions, and we have my client, who is ready and willing to provide a loving home for his daughter. He sat down. Robert Vance leaned back in his chair, looking satisfied. Ms. Chen? The judge said. Sarah Chen stood up. Your Honor, the respondent would like to present evidence that Patricia Vance was engaged in a criminal conspiracy to sell children, including Chloe and Emma Whitfield. And we'd like to call Chloe Whitfield as a witness. A murmur ran through the gallery. Robert Vance's smile faltered. Proceed, Judge Holloway said. Chloe stood up. She walked to the witness stand with her head high, her steps measured. She didn't look at Robert Vance. She didn't look at me. She looked straight ahead, at the judge, and she raised her right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? The bailiff asked. I do, Chloe said. Her voice was clear, strong, not a child's voice at all. Sarah Chen approached the stand. Chloe, can you tell us about your experience in the foster care system? Chloe took a breath. I was in 3 foster homes before Miss Harper adopted us. In the first one, the foster mother only wanted Emma. She said I was too old and too difficult. She used to lock me in the basement when I misbehaved. I was 12. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. She paused. The courtroom was silent. In the second home, the foster father. He used to come into our room at night. He said he was checking on us. I started sleeping with a chair under the doorknob. The social worker, Patricia Vance, knew. I told her. She said I was imagining things, and that if I kept making accusations, I'd be sent to a group home and never see Emma again. Robert Vance shifted in his seat. His lawyers whispered to each other. And the third home? Sarah Chen asked. The third home was fine, Chloe said. But we were only there for 2 weeks before Patricia Vance came and said she'd found a perfect family for Emma. A couple from overseas. She said they had a big house and a swimming pool. She said Emma would be so happy. She didn't mention me. When I asked what would happen to me, she said I'd be taken care of. She looked at Robert Vance then, directly at him. He looked away. Miss Harper adopted us before that could happen, Chloe continued. She didn't know about the buyers. She didn't know about Patricia Vance. She just saw 2 kids who needed a home and said yes. She's the first person who ever said yes to both of us. Together. Sarah Chen nodded. Chloe, did Robert Vance, your biological father, ever contact you before this custody petition? No, Chloe said. Did he ever send you a letter? A birthday card? A phone call? No. Did you even know his name before last week? No. So why do you think he's fighting for custody now? Chloe's jaw tightened. Because someone is paying him to. Because I'm worth money to someone. Because men like him don't suddenly decide to be fathers. They decide to be profitable. Objection. Robert Vance's lawyer shot to his feet. Speculation. Sustained, Judge Holloway said. But she was looking at Chloe with something like respect. The witness will limit her testimony to facts. Yes, Your Honor, Chloe said. She turned back to Sarah Chen. The fact is, I don't want to go with Robert Vance. I don't know him. I don't trust him. And I know, that if he gets custody of me, I'll disappear. Just like Patricia Vance planned, just like those buyers wanted. She looked at me then, and she smiled. A real smile. Small and fragile, but real. My family is with Miss Harper, with Emma, with the woman who stopped me at the door when I tried to leave. The woman who said I was worth keeping. Robert Vance never said that. No one ever said that. Except her. Sarah Chen turned to the judge. No further questions, Your Honor. Robert Vance's lawyer stood up for cross-examination. He approached the stand with a predatory smile. Chloe, he said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. You've been through so much. It's understandable that you'd be confused. Attached to the first person who showed you kindness. But don't you think a child needs her real father? Don't you think blood matters? Chloe looked at him. Those green eyes, cold and steady. Blood, she said, is what my mom had on her arm when she died. Blood is what I saw when my foster father hit his wife. Blood is what ties me to a man who spent 10 years in prison for hurting people. She leaned forward. Miss Harper isn't my blood, but she's my family. And family isn't about blood. It's about who stays. The lawyer opened his mouth to respond, but Judge Holloway cut him off. That's enough, she said. She looked at Robert Vance, then at his lawyers, then at the USB drive sitting on the evidence table. I've heard enough. Mr. Vance, your petition is denied. The adoption of Chloe Whitfield by Harper Jennings stands. Furthermore, based on the evidence presented today, I am referring this case to the district attorney for investigation into potential conspiracy charges. Robert Vance's face went purple. You can't. I can, Judge Holloway said, and I am. Bailiff, please escort Mr. Vance and his counsel from my courtroom. As they were let out, Robert Vance looked back at Chloe. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Not love, not regret. Just emptiness. Then he was gone. Chloe stepped down from the witness stand. I met her in the aisle and pulled her into my arms. She was shaking, but she was holding me back, her fingers gripping my jacket like she was afraid I'd disappear. I did it, she whispered. You did it, I said. You were amazing. I was terrified. Me too. She pulled back and looked at me. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But that was okay. She didn't need to cry to be whole. Can we go home? she asked. Yeah, I said, taking her hand. Let's go home. That night, the three of us sat on the couch. Me in the middle, Emma on my left, Chloe on my right. Emma was half asleep, her head on my shoulder, clutching a stuffed rabbit she'd named Mr. Hops. Chloe was reading a book, her legs tucked under her, looking for all the world like a normal teenager. My phone buzzed. A text from Judge Holloway. Robert Vance has been arrested. Conspiracy to commit human trafficking. The buyers have been identified. Chloe and Emma are safe. You did good, Harper. I put the phone down and looked at my daughters. My family. The one I'd chosen, and the one that had chosen me back. Hey, I said softly. I love you both. Just so you know. Emma mumbled something that might have been, love you too, and drifted off to sleep. Chloe looked up from her book. She didn't say anything for a long moment. Then she closed the book, set it aside, and leaned her head on my other shoulder. Yeah, she said quietly. I know. And for the first time since I'd met her, I felt her relax. Really relax. The armor cracked, just a little, and underneath was a girl who was learning, slowly, painfully, stubbornly, how to be loved. It wasn't a perfect ending. We had years of therapy ahead of us, years of trust building and boundary testing and late-night conversations about mothers who chose drugs and fathers who chose money. Years of Emma asking why her sister was sad sometimes, and Chloe learning that it was okay to be sad, that sadness didn't make her damaged. But it was our beginning, and that was enough.